Right, I'd like to call to order the Schenectady City Council Committee meeting for Monday, Tuesday, June 20th, 2023. First committee is Finance.
Thank you. I would like to call the Finance Committee to order. The first item is authorization to enter agreement with Peers of New York. Ms. Ziad. Mr. Brown is going to take this.
Good afternoon. As a part of the American Rescue Plan Act, HUD has distributed home investment funds to assist individuals and households who are homeless at risk of homelessness and other vulnerable populations through the Schenectady Home Consortium. The City of Schenectady, the City of Troy, and the Town of Colony are allocated $3.8 million in funding. We are asking for authorization to enter into agreement with Cares of New York for an amount not to exceed of $413,938 of home art funds. Funding allocated to the consortium through December 31st, 2029 to administer the implementation of the home art allocation plan.
Questions? Comments? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
The next item is the ARPA contract follow-up. Mr. Ferrari.
I'm just going to pass some of this out here. So we got enough.
So we have enough?
We have enough? Mayor, do you have one?
No.
Everybody's good?
One more.
Got it?
I'll show it in the book.
And does Andrew have? No, we don't. Can we have that one, Anthony? Sorry.
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
So what we have here is all the funding that we've, what we have here is an allocation of all the funding that we had so far with ARPA. And including that, I have some in color here. At the last page, it shows what it means. The colors green mean that we are contracted with these agencies. The colors yellows show that we're about to contract with these agencies. And the one in blue they have received specs, and we're going out to bid to see where they are. I've been in contact with a few of these ARPA agencies. I had a meeting specifically with the Electric City Co-op over the weekend to find out where they are, where they're going. We let them know that time is of essence. They have until September of 2022 to get the funds that they said that they're going to need to allocate $6.7 million to get our $1 million contract. The problem that they're having is they're looking to purchase Old Ortho, New York, which the school had bought. So it kind of put them in a tailspin, and now so they're looking at other options. One of the things that they had mentioned is that they had other monies coming from the county or whatever, and I asked them, I says, well, that all has to be in place before we do our contract with you. So I let them know that they're working on it, and hopefully they'll get it in time. I did have some communications, third-party communications with the aquatic group, and the word that I had was that they're looking someplace in Rotterdam, New York, and I think that disqualifies them from our grant. It has not been completed yet. So if they come to Schenectady, they still have to come up with their funding too, and that is by August for them to get their money. That we get 1 year. We're following up. What's the other book here? With the seat is we're very close with the seat for and empowerment, education for jobs, and we're ongoing on a lot of the city projects with the pool. So we're getting ready to bid for the golf irrigation. We're looking at work at Steinmetz Park and what was the last one? At Jerry Burrell Park. We're getting ready to start. One of the things we're going to have to ask is the big questions when we start getting their bids back. For instance, for the Miracle on Craig Street, Harbor Rehab. You know, what do we do if it comes like $1 million more than we allocated? You know, that's the question that we have to ask. Do we go for more money? How does that happen? You know, what are the factors that include that? Again, those are some of the questions that they ask. And the other question is, what would they do if they need more time? You know, and of course, my advice to them is you would have to come to the council and speak to it. Another a problem that was asked was about if they wanted to change their original application. I said I didn't think you could change it, but again, that's really all up to the powers to be. So, do you have any other questions?
Question, go ahead.
So some of these did not have to have any, there were no contingencies attached. But,
Yeah.
so I'm just kind of wondering what's like, so the enterprise, seat you mentioned is going to be doing very soon. They're getting ready to go. But like the food delivery box, like for 50,000.
Right.
That seems like
You would think so, right?
Yeah.
So, for instance, one of the things I'm in communication with Proctors for their a reopening startup, and you know, I emailed them saying, hey, I know you're open, so you must have completed the work. I go, maybe you don't need the money now. Let us know. So, you know, you send emails out, they don't come back, you know. So we're kind of in a standstill with some of these things. Also, too, some of these smaller organizations, their people have changed, and so. You know, I gotta try to find out who's in charge of it to actually send them or talk to them to see if we can move this out.
So I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
please.
You're making the direct contact?
I'm trying to make the direct contacts, and I'm actually bringing them in to, you know, to meet with me so I can see who they are and really go through it, you know?
Go ahead.
So I just want to go back to Ms. Porterfield's question. So did you not get a response from the Green Market about?
Yeah, I thought Haley Vaccaro was the head of it, but she's no longer the head of the Green
Right,
Market.
yeah.
So I'm trying to find who's ahead of it and who's going to move this forward. You
It
know?
might be Mary Jane Shave, I'm not sure.
Yeah, which I don't have any information on.
Or area, I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You guys don't know at all.
Well, I think that we could probably find out from Mary Jane who we should be in touch with.
Also, like with the Kwanzaa, so any of you people in the Kwanzaa over there, we have a $10,000 grant for building picnic tables. I don't have a connection with them either, so if anybody knows,
I'll send you something.
please, I appreciate it. Yep.
Go, oh, sorry, go ahead.
So is it safe to assume that any projects without any additional numbers or figures represent agencies that haven't had communication with you?
Correct. And they're not contracted, right? And at the very far right corner is actually what we have spent. And that totals at the bottom. And comes to 4 million. In the bottom right. Yeah.
So you gave us some indication verbally of who's going on contract. So when we see this again in a couple weeks, like the Central Park tennis courts, there's no activity on that?
Talking about public ones, because I can do
Yeah.
both.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The public ones, yeah.
They're kind of mixed in, so.
Yeah. I just wanted to give you the list. Well, Chris can answer a lot of these public ones, you know, about the pools, the parks. There you go, Chris. Thank you.
So the list that I'm handing out, that is the public ARPA projects. Those are the projects that engineering is the lead on. I'm working with Anthony on them, however, they are not similar to the ones he was talking about. So if you look, we have, was 21 million.
Can you do that?
Yeah, it's okay. $21.3 million of ARPA funds committed to public projects, mostly revolving around parks. So this is the status. So if you were to go down, Jerry Burrell Park construction, Central Park swimming pool under construction, Billhurst Fairview Park is going to be under construction, A Diamond Field lighting is awarded and going to be under construction. The Central Park general improvements, those are on hold right now. Central City Hall ventilation, that we had a design kickoff meeting last month. The Central Park Michigan Ave tennis court, we met with CHA Sports, USTA, and we have a plan of attack, kind of wrote that there. We're going to preserve courts 1 through 5 and 10 to 14. That is being designed, and we're hoping to do that as soon as possible through a purchasing agreement. Billhurst Park, that's the pool that loses quite a bit of water. We're going to be doing some mainline drain tests on that this week. Riverside Park, that's on hold. Old North Ferry Pump Station, we have Synthesis looking to put together some bid specs and plans. We got quotes to do the work. It's within budget, but it's outside of our purchasing policy, so we need to bid that. Steinman's Park, that one is on hold right now. Grout Park, we're doing a survey. Golf course irrigation system is out to bid. Michigan Ave Field Phase 1 retaining wall, we awarded that last week. And the Empowerment Center, we have the roof replaced, we have the deck removed, we have a design firm pending to come on and do the design, and we have a contract pending to do the environmental remediation.
That's awesome. That's great.
No, I'm just saying, you're the chicken.
Any questions on these? Go ahead.
I just want to say, good work. This is great. And thank you for that update.
Yeah, thank you both for detailing this for us, to kind of guide us along where we are. Thank you both.
Thanks for the
Any
update.
other questions come in before?
So can we just like in a couple weeks also, just, see what the progress is happening?
Yeah, just the on-hold projects will probably remain on hold until the end of the year,
Okay.
just because we have so many that are in design and construction. So that's what's up. We have a little bit of time. I put the ARPA allocation right here in the middle, that sentence there, that we must obligate it by the 24th and spend by the 26th. So for those projects that are right now on hold, we're not in any kind of jeopardy of losing them. They're not future projects, but we only have so much capacity, and this is a lot of work.
Absolutely.
All right?
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other business or pro finance?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
I'd like to call to order the Public Safety Committee. We have one item on the agenda today that is discuss the reducing city speed limit to 25 miles per hour by Councilman Patrick.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. I wanted to put this back on the agenda. We talked about it last September, and I wanted to bring it forward again. Certainly, we continue to hear complaints from residents across the city about the speeding issue. I've asked Mayor McCarthy if he and Mr. Coluccio could give us some feedback about the speeding, about this idea of reducing the speed limit. So I'd like to turn it over to these two gentlemen.
Thank you, Councilmember. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jen, do you have some of the data to put up?
I do. Yeah.
This is from some of the sensors. We've had a lot of public discussion on Kings Road, and so compiled. There's 6 sites there. I don't know if we have all of them in here. If there's just 5 of them. So if you look at these sites along the road, it's where the sensors are. From that, we can pull speed data, which is, this is also vehicle counts. So look there in terms of the amount of traffic that's going there. And this is interesting for a number of factors. We haven't had some of this detailed analysis before. We now have it with the project that Mr. Wallen is leading for the bridge replacement. Largely all these vehicles are going to be diverted off Kings Road. What's the tentative date for us to shut that down?
Kings Road Bridge, we're looking to shut it down December 1st.
So right about there'd be some inconvenience for those individuals that use Kings Road now, but it's the price you pay for progress to get the bridge replaced. But from each one of these sensors, John has compiled the actual speeds that are there.
Yeah, this is the 7-day 85th percentile speeds in these locations. So these nodes are ubiquitous nodes. There's 750 of them installed throughout the city, and they give us various data such as speed, volume, pedestrian volume. They don't all do the same. It's because of where they're set and the position of them. Some of them aren't able to give us certain things. So they've looked at every single one and collect data on all the items that are possible and can be accurate at those locations. So these are, again, so these are the 7-day average 85th percentile speeds. And we're going to walk you through all the speeds at different locations so that you can see that. It's a lot of data. I'm going to go through it quickly because it's just going to be boring to you. There's so much of it here. So go ahead, Mayor, if you want.
Again, this is the breakdown of the actual speeds, the vehicles. This is detailed information that we've never really had in the past, so some of the deployment of the sensors that are out there allow us to collect better data and to, again, hopefully use it to manage different resources throughout the city. That, I can't see that far away, so
let me just tell you the first thing. You see the green circle? That's the location of where this particular sensor is, and that's the data inside. Just so you have that.
So if you look at compliance there, one side is the number of vehicles, and then across the bottom is also, depending on the color of the graph, the speed. So you have a large number of vehicles that are compliant with the posted speed, moving in with what would be an acceptable manner of driving up and down the road.
We're going to go through the week quickly, and then
Sure,
we're going
why
to
don't you
switch to the
do
next
that, Jeff?
location.
Sure.
It's Thursday,
And go to the day.
Friday. So if you look at it, I'll just stop for a second. The top one is 15 to 20 miles an hour. So that's the largest speed category. Saturday, Sunday. Now we're going to go to location 2. See the green dot went down. And these are the speeds on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're still looking at the blue line is 20 to 25 miles an hour, and the green is 25 to 30, so they're still within legal. Friday. So it's just to give you an idea of the amount of data that we have to look at. So location 3 we're going to now, still the top speed on Tuesday is 25 to 30 miles an hour. So the mayor and I looked at this, and Chris as well, and one of the things we looked at, because the lower speeds are the highest numbers, it's really hard to see who's speeding. So later on, toward the end, you're going to see just the speeders. Okay? I wanted to give you this information. We move down to location 3. Now we're at location 4. And this is going toward Rotterdam. Again, on Monday, the highest speed is 25 to 30. This information allows us to be proactive to give the police department the information to know when the best time is for them to go out and do enforcement. So now we're on location 5, so we're further down. Now we're looking at a little higher speed because that's a little more straight, it's a little more open, it's a little more away from the intersection. Tuesday. And this is the last one, and this is right over the bridge. Now you see that the top speed is 30 to 30, not the top speed, but the top number of vehicles and their speed is 30 to 35 miles an hour. And Sunday. Now we're going to switch to just vehicle speed over 30 miles an hour. show you this one. We went back to location 1. This is Monday. You're looking at speed of 30 to 35 miles an hour, meaning no one was speeding at this time at that location on Monday. Obviously, the numbers were a lot lower because we saw so much compliance. And that location 2. Location 3. You're going to be bored by the time you it's a lot of data. So that, the 30 to 35 is up there. Most of these, 30 is legal, so they could be doing 30. We don't have it split that much. That would be so hard to grab. There are some. Especially when we get to location 7.
Again, because it's a straight line.
Yeah. What was that one about? That's still 35. Okay, so now we're at location 7 on Monday. So a couple of 45 to 50s way down. Looks like there might be 2 of them. 40, 45 is a little higher. If you look at 3 p.m. on Tuesday, it's a much larger number of people that are driving 40 to 45. Same thing here. If you look, it is around that 4 to 6 p.m. time period. It's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So that's it.
So that shows the detailed analysis that can be done. It enables better enforcement in what recommendation to try this, because we've collected the data now. Post this section of Kings Road with a 25-mile-an-hour speed. Collect the data over, again, a similar period to see if we get an element of compliance. And again, this is done after there's been a fairly aggressive enforcement component. Take this as an experiment, post it to 25 miles an hour, see what the actual shift is, and then be able to do it again throughout the city on an appropriate and applicable basis.
It would give us data to be able to see if what we're doing is the right thing and if it is making a difference.
It's Carl.
So, I have a question. So this is like a very limited time frame that you're collecting this data. Is there a longer time frame that you've been collecting it?
This was a week.
Right. So these nodes were in place for a while. Yeah. So I was wondering if that data was collected for months before that, or is it just for that week? Because, as the mayor said, that this is based after there's been a lot of information about it, a lot of talk about it. It's been on the news. People have come down. So I was wondering if there was something to compare to before all that enforcement happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible to go back and look at that, sure.
Well, I think that's important to have that comparison.
Mr. Foley? So, kind of more to your point, President Porterfield, I was also, because I know that there's also was I'm not exactly sure what you call it there, the sign that lets people know, this is the speed, and this is the speed that you're traveling in. And I know that tracker mechanism has been there for some while, so I was just, I guess my question is similar to that. Could we look at some data before that was put in place, and then look at the data after that specific intervention was implemented to kind of see how effective that is. So are we going to go in the right direction of reduction of speed limit, or is it just, enough to have that type of that intervention that's in place?
Well, it can be pulled back to whatever period of time you want, again, depending on when the sensors were actually activated. Done for reference here, a 1 week time frame. So it gives I'll call a workable baseline. This level of data has not generally been available, so that there hasn't been the type of analytic review that you can draw clear and consistent results from it. So it's, again, part of it is we're learning from these sensors and how do we use the information in a better way to, in this case, manage speed and vehicle traffic.
I guess if I could, we certainly can provide that information. I'm not sure what we'd be looking for from it, because we are seeing that vehicles are speeding, especially toward the Rotterdam end. So we are seeing higher that suddenly we're looking at 45 miles an hour and over 50 vehicles. So we still are seeing speeding. So wouldn't the potential of reducing that speed limit and posting that and doing this event show you that there could be or would be a reduction by going the speed limit?
Yeah, so yes, the question I was asking was more around the specific interventions that have been implemented thus far. In other words, if we now have a mechanism that's letting people know this is the speed limit, this is the speed limit that you're driving at, like I know that
hasn't been out there though. That wasn't out there in this one.
Right, well, that's been out there at Kings Road there for some time, right? So when coming over the bridge, there's actually a sign with that saying.
It was there before this data was.
Right. So my question, and hopefully I don't know if we're kind of along the same train of thought here, is that this data, if we could look at the data pre whatever interventions that we've implemented and then post, and that would decide. So the question really isn't about, just so I'm clear, my question isn't really about speeding, because clearly, like, to the point that there is some speeding happening. My question is about the effectiveness of, what interventions that we're using. And I was just saying, this seems like a really good tool to be able to do that. Could we do that?
Yeah, we could do the 3 different periods, right? We can go, I don't know, how far you want me to go back? 2 months? I still want to be in the spring time period because of the weather, and then we can compare that to this to after we change it.
So in order to do that, we don't need the data from before, because what we're looking to do is look at 2 different interventions. We have this one, this is the baseline. If we do the 25 mile an hour one, we do a 1 week period, then we can compare and we can see which intervention works. We don't really need that data before in order to decide which intervention to do, to see if there's any difference. So you could see if there's a statistically significant difference between the 2 interventions in order to decide. You don't need the data before that in order to make that decision.
Patrick.
Could I just, for clarification, do you mean when you say the 2 different interventions, so one would be the neon sign that is telling them
No,
what
police
their speed
enforcement
is?
versus the reduced speed limit.
Right. So again, what I was saying is that we could look at the specific interventions. So in order to look at the effectiveness of a specific intervention, we need to get data pre-intervention and post-intervention. So whether that's, actually, you do. If you have a tool and you're implementing a tool, and then you look at the data, well, how's this changed behavior? Well, if this tool is saying now that people are speeding, we implemented this intervention, now we are looking at reduction in speed, then we can say, okay, well, there's something to be said about the effectiveness of said intervention. If we don't look at the data before we implemented the tool, then we don't have a good baseline to be able to narrow down where or what intervention in particular was effective and which wasn't. I don't see this.
Actually, you do. It's called an ANOVA or a t-test. You can compare the 2 columns. see if there's a statistically significant difference in order to see which intervention is the better of the two. You don't really need that other data.
So, as I said, to me, I really want to see the data prior to any interventions before we, so we have that to see if how the intervention works. Because clearly there was a speeding problem that's been brought to our attention. This is after either the police thing was put up there or the neighbors started complaining, and I understand that there were some visits by the police, so I would like to at least see, and as you said, when the spring began, Mr. Coluccio, what the speeding was like. I'd like to see that, be able to see that data as well.
Any other questions or concerns? I had a question specifically. Definitely, I appreciate the work that's been done so far, and for any individuals watching from the Kings Road neighborhood, I'm glad that these steps are being considered at the present time. With respect to other areas of the city, have there been any discussions as to additional neighborhoods that we can consider also? Because I would hate to set a precedence of, in order to get your area in the community identified, you have to come to City Hall. So I'd like to show a proactive approach as to here are other areas we're going to be identifying to have similar considerations.
Can we have information that's being collected throughout the city? John referenced the number of centers that are there. This will also create some unique performances because we've had generally an open period, we've had some enforcement, and then when the bridge closes, this is all going to drop to very low numbers. So it'll cover all the bases. But yes, this thought was a good section of road. Traffic counts are fairly high there. Again, more as a demonstration project where we post the speed. Anytime you change vehicle criteria like that, it's usually a period of soft enforcement. You have to educate people that they've been conditioned and used to having posted at a higher speed. We drop it down, do some measurements, and see if in fact we're getting the results that we want, and what are the best ways to get compliance with it. Is it additional signage? Is it some modification where we put up the red lights with the flashing lights, some different options there, better delineation of the street, on the street surface of the appropriate lanes. In some instances, as people turning or swinging wide, we're looking to, not looking, but we are going to rebuild the section of Brandywine from State going to 890. That has a very high incidence of vehicle events and then auto pedestrian. So that after that, and that's taken a long time to actually put together, we're going to see some positive numbers coming out of that. And this also stopped short of putting up stop signs. I want to see if we can get it. If we put up stop signs, generally what will occur is the incident of auto accidents is going to increase. You're going to get people who are just the stop sign, the speeding, you're going through there, so you're going to get cars that are going to run into each other. And again, the environmental thing is to keep the vehicles moving is the best efficient way to handle it. But it's again to get the drivers to be compliant with what the speed is, and so that they're not creating hazard for themselves, pedestrians, or irritation to the neighbors that live adjacent to Kings Road.
Understood, thank you. Definitely with respect to a lot of individuals who've been affected by this for a long period of time. I know we've talked about it a lot, but definitely talking about action and implementing something is a very important differentiation we have to make. So for clarification, are we looking at lowering the speed limit throughout the individual locations that had higher speeding, or are we looking to limit or lower the speed limit to all of these locations, 1 through 7?
That section of Kings Road.
That section.
So it'll be 1 through 7.
From Albany Street down to going over the bridge into Rotterdam.
Okay, and then definitely with respect to Mr. Coluccio's time, identifying some additional areas, you said you would be able to compile a listing.
Sure.
I appreciate that. Mr. Toro?
Just a question. So nothing happens this evening. John comes back in 2 weeks with data that really isn't important. So it's another 2 to 3 weeks before anything's implemented.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? You said that data that was not really important?
Right. The data that shows maybe from March to April, and this is in May, data that is not a baseline. This is our baseline for what's happened, what's happening now. So all we want to do, or all that should be done, is implement the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit to see what the new data is, to see if that's making a difference. I mean, it's kind of just simple.
Mr. Farley?
So I think two things can be true, and I think that you're might be, and then if that's in response to what my inquiry was, what I was saying is that this tool seems to be a way to measure the effectiveness of any given intervention. In order to know whether intervention is effective or not, you know what I mean? So in order to know that if an intervention is effective or not, we have to have data previous to the intervention, then post the intervention. Then we could say, oh, this works. So my question was, and my statement was, this looks like a good tool in order to do that for a very specific intervention. So that's how we could tell the effectiveness of something. You can't measure the effectiveness of something if you don't know what the state of it previous the intervention and then post-intervention. That's the only point I was making. So that's why that information would be valuable to me.
Ms. Porter?
And what we had talked about, the last time we talked about it, is like identifying areas throughout the city, not just a specific one, which is what Mr. Coluccio was just asked for, so that when we implement this, those roads that, there, as I understood, you said there's some roads that we could not reduce it.
So there's 750 of these nodes that collect that data. They don't all have the ability, like Kings Road does not have a lot of side road traffic, right, coming out of them. They have a couple of key points that they come out of, but basically they're lower volume. So the traffic on the main has the opportunity, there's no traffic signals there or anything, so they have the ability to flow faster, right? So that's one of the reasons why we're looking at this street for prototype, because it made sense because of the number of nodes we had available to count the traffic. I guess I thought we were looking at it as if we test this by reducing the speed limit to 25 miles an hour and it does make a difference, then it makes sense to expand it in other areas. But if we institute this 25 mile an hour and we see absolutely no change in the average speeds that we're looking at, then I'm not sure in my mind that makes sense to change it because it's not going to make a difference. Does that make sense to you?
I understand what you're saying. Because I know that wasn't our initial discussion several months ago. It was talking about looking throughout the city, is what our initial discussion was about.
Agreed. And I don't know if Chris can talk about that. What was the story on the study that was required? That was something that CDTC was looking at?
The DOT was hoping to have studies on rural.
Mr. Walton, would you mind? Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the CDTC, the DOT, and several municipalities got together to do studies on these. The biggest, I would say, outcome of that was that the DOT, from their perspective, they said that they will allow local municipalities to do this on local roads. However, they will need a detailed study for anything that is not considered a local road. And what that opened up for us would be the idea that we would need a detailed study to change the speed limit to 25 on routes such as State Street, Union Street, Erie Boulevard, Albany Street, those roads that are classified as something other than local. And the challenge that makes is that then you have a network of main roads where the speed limit is 30, and then dozens upon dozens of local roads off of that where the speed limit is different, meaning that we need to sign every one of those roads so that you know that you're entering a road that is a different speed than the one you're just on. New York City is experimenting with a sign when you come in that says speed limit 25 unless otherwise noted. So then we would put signs only on the main routes. That might save us. However, I don't know how enforceable that would be if challenged on a road that, we would have a dozen signs entering the city, and if you missed it, you missed it. So, that's one of the reasons that I haven't been actively pushing this topic, is because it's a large topic. Even Kings Road, the classification of Kings Road is not a local road, I believe. So we would need to talk with the DOT about that. The towns that have done this so far are small. I think it was East Greenbush and Bethlehem are both working on these, but they're considerably smaller than Schenectady. I don't know of any cities that have gone through with a full citywide change yet, but I'm sure they're in the works. That's why I was working with the CDTC to see what we could do to follow, because sometimes it's just as good to follow.
Thank you, Mr. Wallen. I know for me personally, I would hate for it to be interpreted by anyone watching this that the only way to get your street or neighborhood in the community adhered to is by getting an article in the Gazette. And I know that's not what we're supporting, but definitely there's a concerted effort from our avid, growing bike community and other individuals in local neighborhoods that they would like this topic to be surveyed significantly. And so I definitely think having those surveys in step would show the community that we are identifying this. But also you raised a really good point about enforcement. So also looking at what is our multi-tiered approach as a city with respect to addressing with respect to addressing speed. And I think it is now appropriate to then talk about what tool we currently do have, which is speed humps. So are there any interest, or is there additional funding to put more of those, deploy some of those resources, if you were able to speak to that right now?
Yeah, I guess my opinion, which is probably not as popular because it's more of the engineering opinion, is that the things that we are doing today are what we should be doing. The data that Mr. Colicchio presented, the pre-data, and then we could do post-data. Same word with Duane Avenue and Rugby, which we're going to be doing, is we're getting data, we're seeing the effects, and then we're going to look at the effects and say, did it work? And if it works...
So what you're saying is that you're going to look at the information before the intervention and then after the intervention to measure the effectiveness of the intervention?
Correct.
Okay.
But this is, excuse me, Mr. Williams, if I may interrupt, but this is the pre-data, and then we'll lower the speed limit here as a demonstration project for this one road, and then we'll have that data as our post-data.
Right.
But I think the difference was that there hasn't been a police enforcement utilized. There hasn't been a concerted effort to notify the community with regards to this. So I think it's different.
With regards to this?
With Duane, the implementation of speed humps.
Yeah, I guess with the speed humps, you're trying not to bias the jury. So we put the cameras up and they're in incognito mode before, so they don't flash, because the flashing is actually the deterrent. You don't want to deter, you want to see what is actually happening. Similarly, now that we have the speed humps on the corridor, they're back, and they're also in incognito mode because we don't want to use both. Now, in the end of the day, both is probably the most effective, but we're trying to find out how effective were these, not both. So we're going to try to see how effective they are, and we're moving them to another area. So we're going to have one in Hamilton Hill, then we're going to move one to the high school area, north side of the city, and see what we have, and be able to say, hey, you know what, these work. Surprisingly, we haven't gotten any complaints. But that was one of the many factors, is we put these speed tables directly in front of residential homes. And I have not heard from the residents. One resident that we talked to welcomed it.
Oh, yeah.
And so, but it is it was a noise that they do make. So that was right off the bat. It's like, okay, no complaints. Okay, now we move on to the next. Are they working? How far do we want to put them apart? Are people speeding up? Is it, we haven't gotten complaints about that. About people going over them and then racing to the next one. So hopefully that's a good sign. Hopefully people are adhering to it. We're also doing them in this period, which we're picked this window because we're going to have it during school, not school, and then the other one's going to be no school during school, so we can try to get a more fair evaluation of what really happens along that corridor. But I think it's difficult to just, it's a significant investment, and to just go and make it based off of, a complaint, it's a difficult, it puts me in a difficult position. It puts John in a difficult position for us to do these things. It's the exact same thing that happens with stop signs, and that's what happened. Like, people just say, you know what, if we had a stop sign here, that would solve all of our problems. Stop signs are not supposed to be traffic control devices. They're not supposed to solve problems. They're supposed to be there for a reason. We're going to try to go in. And to your point, they're not here right now, but enforcement, it's huge. It's a huge part of it. And I do think that the police are taking it seriously. They have a grant to buy more radar enforcement signs, which we've been working on. The trailer, they've been moving it around wherever John and I or the mayor asked them to put it to try to help in certain areas. So I think that also helps.
Any other questions, Ms. Patrick?
Well, I just want to try to summarize, but I think that this demonstration project will be some useful information, and I'm thrilled that we're doing it because it has been an ongoing discussion. We're certainly all hearing it throughout the city. We're all here, I'm sure all of us are hearing from residents that speeding is, one of the top concerns that's out there right now. I think we're seeing it also probably individually as we drive around. So I appreciate everything that you guys are doing already to try to work on this, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens after we put the 25-mile-per-hour piece in place on the demo.
So just be clear, do we need any input from DOT at all to?
I'm going to reach out. If we want to look to make this the 25-mile-per-hour test, then I will reach out to them to bring them on board.
Thank you, Ms. Warner.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments regarding this topic? If not, Ms. Patrick will bring you back in 2 weeks.
Yes, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Great, welcome. If there are no other items that can fall before public safety, can I please accept the motion to adjourn?
So, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
I'd like to call to order City Development and Planning. We have 5 items on the agenda. First one, Mr. Long to authorize the mayor to enter into supplemental agreement number 3 with New York State Department of Transportation for the placement of Kings Road Bridge.
So, speak of the devil. Kings Road Bridge, you awarded the actual contract to win construction 2 cycles ago. Once we had that, we sent the contract and the documents to the DOT. They authorize and come back with a supplemental agreement. The supplemental agreement in front of you is for the 95% of reimbursement for the cost of the bridge replacement.
Are there any questions? Continue motion.
So,
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item number 2, award bidding contract for the hot in place asphalt recycling.
This is a oldie. We used to do hot in place recycling. As everyone knows, it was a process with a large train with lots of fire, rejuvenator, rolling. It was actually very useful process. However, it was not applied on every application in the right spot, right time. So what would happen is that it's an overlay. It is not a mill. We usually, I'd say 95% of our paving program is a mill and pave, because we have curbs, we have drainage structures, we have driveways. We really can't add pavement. So when we do a hot in place, we add 3/4 of an inch of a polymer pavement over the rejuvenated surface. We found historically it does last, the product does work, it saves us money. However, in certain areas when we've done it, it creates puddles at driveways because we're now affecting the drainage. And so we took a pause on it for a while. And this year we have a couple of candidates up in Bellevue that we are looking to try it again because we think that those candidate streets are worthwhile. This is an award bidding contract, but it's actually a piggyback. The county uses this process, and we are allowed to piggyback off of county bids. So that's what we've done in the past, is we pull what we would like from the county's bid to use it ourselves. This is the only group that actually does this, so it's almost like a sole source, but it's not. And we are going to, walk, survey the area, and we are going to try this in areas where we think it is acceptable. I'll give you just an example to talk too much. An area where I don't believe it should have been done was like at Union Avenue. Union Avenue by Union College, if you drive it, you will notice that we paved over the curbs, and there is a giant rut now between Union Avenue and the green space. And that's just because we just put a little too much pavement on that road. We really needed to bring the pavement down and keep the curb line established. Instead, we kind of overflowed the curb line, and now the green space has become a makeshift gutter line, which isn't how that's really supposed to be. So that is an instance where we really just don't want to go and overlay a road because it's a nice new product.
So hearing that, my first intention is like, that's amazing that we I have identified that now. To your experience, how is that continually captured moving forward? Like that truth data.
Of what we should have done? Well, you could always do it by, the eye test at the end, but now, we have a consultant and we tell him these are the tools that we would like to have in our toolbox, and he goes out and we look for candidate streets. So typically downtown, if we're doing a downtown area, the other thing, just to tell you, the train is enormous. They call it a train, but it is enormous. It cannot do city streets. It needs to kind of just fade away and make a nice big radius. So Campbell, Nice Turn, Fairview, those are nice streets to have, that kind of a process. You couldn't put it in a downtown because by the time the first truck is making a turn, the last truck, they're jammed. And so it's really meant for, more rural roads. But we did find that it was a good product. And I'm not saying you'll see me here next year with it. It's kind of like if a road is applicable for it, we use it. If not, and since we can piggyback, it really doesn't add a lot of work to our workload. We're just selecting.
Ms. Patrick?
You mentioned Bellevue as possible sites. I was just wondering, have you identified where you think you're going to do
Yeah, I
that?
think Campbell's the main one that we're going to try it on. We'll try to do as much as Campbell as we can because that seems to work out pretty well for that. And then I think a piece of Fairview. I don't have the list. I should have brought it. But those are the areas that we like is just kind of, and in the paving program, we're trying to do things in concentration so we're not going back to one area and really hitting people every year. So that's where we're looking to. But I can send the list to you tomorrow morning.
Thank you. Is that the same you sent to Alice?
Sure. Yeah, I'll send it to Sam.
Thank you. Any questions?
Right, they're the bidder.
Yes.
Under the county bid.
Under the county bid.
Okay, pursuant to
Yes.
what they provide. Okay, I'll make sure. Thank you.
You got it.
Any questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Wall.
Thank you.
Item number 3, the filing of zoning administrative decisions. Mr. Marnie is gone, so we'll be doing
Yeah, he unfortunately had to run out to the planning commission meeting, so I will cover this.
Okay.
I'm the new chair. So one of the requirements that happens out of the zoning office or part of the job is the zoning officer to issue zoning compliance determinations or administrative zoning decisions. Somebody will request something very specific, the zoning officer reviews the request and then comes up with a determination. As it stands right now, those determination letters are filed within that office. A better practice, and it would have to be authorized by city councils for those decision letters, those administrative zoning decisions to be filed with the record officer for the city, which is the city clerk. So that, because it is an administrative decision, so it would be accessible to the public, and it would create a process for essentially a time limit for somebody who would like to challenge a determination by the zoning officer to do it within a certain amount of time once it's filed with the city clerk. As I said, many of these decision letters right now are not, none of them are filed with the city clerk, and this would create a formal office for the receipt of those determinations. Because there is a deadline for people to challenge a decision of the zoning officer, by filing it with the city clerk every single time, it would create essentially the stopwatch, so to speak, for a person to challenge a determination because those determinations would be challenged, through, could be the BZA and eventually become an Article 78 if somebody were to challenge it there too. So this creates a formal process. So we're looking for authorization for the City Council to require the zoning officer to file those administrative zoning decisions with the city clerk, and also direct the zoning officer to also file those administrative zoning decisions, not from a legal standpoint, but just a practical standpoint, in whatever computer system the city is using. But currently it's Unicity, but who knows, in 20 years it could be a different program that the city's using. So that's what we're looking for, is just a way to clean up the process that's currently in place by creating one designated person legally for which the zoning officer would file those decisions.
So do you know about how many decisions we're talking about? I'm just trying to get my head around how much additional work this is going to create.
I don't know the exact number that come in. Certainly, we're not talking about one a day or anything along those lines. They come up periodically. Many times it's somebody who's looking to buy a property and they want to know, hey, can I use the property for this under the zoning code? It would be a formal request and then a formal letter from the zoning officer, and that letter would then be filed. So it doesn't, it comes up every so often. A lot of times it will be like maybe, an R1 district where there's a two-family house, can I still use it as a two-family house? Or in a commercial district, can I use it as, this commercial space as a restaurant? So it would be a decision letter like that. And the process for the city clerk would just be to receive it as a filing like the city clerk would receive a determination of the BZA.
Mr. Williams?
Was this determination made with the city clerk's office?
The city clerk, no. The city clerk is aware of it. We did talk about it at the legislative conference. It does create, as I said, it is more work for the city clerk's office. There's no doubt about it. I can't tell you how much more time it will take for the city clerk to, receive and then, file and presumably put into Laserfish. It would be the zoning officer who would put it in the computer system, the separate computer system that the departments have access to. But it really is a necessary piece for the city to create a formal body, its clerk, to receive these decisions.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Item number 4 is the sale of property at 2180 Desmond Avenue, vacant lot. And item number 5 is discussion of 1040 Wonder Avenue, and both of those will be in executive session. So at this point in time, I'd like to ask for a motion to recess.
So,
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're recessed. Thank you.
okay. I'd like to call our Claims Committee to order. We have 3 items on the agenda, all of which need to be addressed in executive session. So I would like to call for a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.